welcome to the Total Country Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to this edition of the Total Country Podcast. My name's Kevin Angel, and thanks for joining me, as always. My guests this week are the brilliant London-based Americana country duo O&O. But before we get onto them, I'm running a competition, and you can win some moonshine. The Total Country Podcast have teamed up with the guys at Palmetto Moonshine, South Carolina's first legal moonshine, to offer you good listeners the chance to win some samples of 3 of their flavours, American moonshine, apple pie and blackberry, alongside some cool branded table mats. Palmetto Moonshine is produced in small batches using old age customs, and the creators, Brian and Trey Boggs, are descendants of original moonshiners. I've tasted this stuff and it is delicious. To find out how to win some of this tasty treat, please go and check out the Total Country Podcast social media pages. The competition will be running for 4 weeks starting Friday the 29th of May. All entrants must be 18 and over, and please do drink responsibly. Right, on to today's show. O&O are a London-based Americana country duo made up of American-Israeli pairing Obadiah Jones and Orion Peled, who released their debut record Travelling in June 2017. They released their debut EP, The Truth Comes Out, in September of 2018. The band understandably gained immediate attention for their slice of throwback Americana and have received radio play from the likes of Country Hits Radio, BBC London and UK Country Radio. They've also been a well-talked-about addition to a host of festivals, including Black Deer Festival, Buckle and Boots, Country to Country, and the Cambridge Folk Festival. Their most recent single, Leave It Till Tomorrow, co-written by Laura Oakes, came out on the 24th of April, and despite being released in the middle of the worldwide pandemic, has been brilliantly received. They've supported this with fortnightly shows on social media. If you like your country laden with beautiful harmonies, a good dose of banjo, and a whole lot of heart, you're going to love these guys. This interview takes you around the world to Liverpool, to the 60s, features James Taylor, Paul McCartney and more. These guys are just fascinating. So here we go, my interview with Obadiah and Orion, who together make up O&O. Firstly, how is quarantine treating you both? It's a strange time. I was just saying off the recording, it seems like it's taken the British tradition of discussing the weather first and replaced it with this. But how are things treating you guys?
Yeah, I mean, it is strange. It's totally changed our routine, our world, and so much of what we do for work and everything is playing live music, and that's just totally gone. But we've found other ways to do it, and we've done a bi-weekly YouTube live stream, and that seems to be going really well, and we're able to perform for not people just in London but in everywhere in the world, which is great.
You actually took the brave move of releasing a single during this time as well, didn't you?
Yeah, we were considering whether to do it or not as planned, but we just thought, people's attention is more now on digital. So we might as well release a song since people have more time to listen, more time to tune in now. Although we can't support it with a live show like we planned, that show has been rescheduled to September. So I'm sure we'll have new music out then as well.
Have you found the time? A lot of people I spoke to have said it's been good in terms of stepping back and almost being able to reflect on things. In terms of their songwriting, is that something you found at all? People have said they've almost been nostalgic in how they look at things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. Definitely. Well, this song that we just released, Leave It Till Tomorrow, was one of a group of songs that we recorded last year. So I guess in that sense, it is nostalgic. But I think just having the time to, because our routine is quite busy, and I think we were on tour before this lockdown happened, and so we were kind of running all over the country, and to suddenly just be homebound, and it's allowed us to do other projects that we don't necessarily always have the time for, which is nice.
Yeah, I think though, I think a general thing about this quarantine is some people will feel this kind of pressure to keep being productive, and I'm not just talking about musicians, anyone. And some people will maybe feel a bit down and just kind of not really feeling into doing much,
or inspired,
or whatever. And both are totally valid. I think it's a very interesting time in terms of just like how we view our lives as humans, because so much of how we value ourselves is by productivity and making money. And a lot of people have lost their jobs right now, and it's kind of like a part of your identity. So it's just dealing with this thing of like, okay, who am I if I can't be productive or I can't be making money right now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I suppose it makes you realise you can just be who you are, really, isn't it? You can just be yourself. Yeah.
You can just live, you know, you don't always have to be in the rat race.
What a revelation.
It's great that it takes a quarantine to get us
I know. So for those who are listening to this who haven't heard you guys before, firstly, they're missing out. But how would you describe yourselves musically? Kind of paint a picture for me.
Okay, well, my name is Obadiah. I'm from Colorado in the States, and this is Orion sitting next to me.
From Israel.
From Israel. We love to sing in harmony, so that's kind of the foundation of what we do. We call ourselves country Americana to kind of put us in a more rootsy sort of genre. We're definitely not making pop or rock music. It's all very, this sounds kind of pretentious, but organic instruments, and we don't really do anything digital or electronic. So in that sense, I think that's more in the vein of country Americana music than other stuff.
Mm-hmm. I suppose our music is quite nostalgic because we do kind of our influences are mainly like songwriters from the 60s and 70s. So we try to echo that in a new way.
Perfect. Brilliant. You've gone on to my next question really well, actually. So, yeah, musically for me, I'm hearing a lot of James Taylor, sort of Simon and Garfunkel channeled through your music. Is that where you draw your main influence from, or is it a complete mix?
It's one of the places. One of the first songs that we ever played together was "Close Your Eyes" by James Taylor, and it's a song that's all in harmony from start to finish. So I think that really represents like what we're all about.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely heavily influenced by songwriters of the 60s, 70s, and Fleetwood Mac would be a big one for us.
Yeah. But we listen to all kinds of music.
Yeah, we do.
Things that would surprise you, possibly like neo-soul stuff like Janelle Monáe, and a lot of like, kind of like, I guess it's indie pop or whatever, like Dan Kroll, who's another LIPA graduate. We listen a lot to our peers, which is so fun,
I guess that means that we're in a good scene. Yeah. Brilliant. So what is it about 60s songwriters in particular? You've mentioned them a couple of times now. What's about the essence of them that really appeals to you?
Well, I think they're called classics for a reason. I think it's just the level of songwriting, the standard of songwriting at that time seemed to be particularly high. But I think that has kind of shifted. At that time, those songwriters were in the mainstream, and that sort of focus on songwriting has shifted from mainstream pop rock music to other subgenres or smaller genres like country and folk and that kind of thing.
Country music has always been about the song first. So I think that's a good way to describe it. We're all about the song and the melody and the lyrics and the arrangement.
Perfect. So you guys have got a really interesting background, which I'd like to touch on. So you met in Liverpool while studying at the Liverpool Institute for Performing Arts. Now, obviously, as you mentioned, you guys aren't UK natives. So how did you both end up in Liverpool, and how did you end up meeting?
Well, on my side, it was pretty kind of like a random accident in a way. I actually went to study acting at first. And when I didn't get into acting school, I thought, well, what is actually like, my true passion? And I realized that I've always been trying to sing in every kind of place I've been in life, whether it's been trying to get into acting school. I've always tried to like put a song in there or something like that. I've always, and at the time I also started songwriting a bit. So I went to study music in Israel, and LIPA was one of the kind of affiliate colleges with the college I was studying at in Tel Aviv in Israel. So they came to do auditions, and I just always had this dream to study in a performing arts school, and abroad sounded like a dream. So I just went and auditioned. And when I got in, it was like, okay, I have no choice. I have to go. I have to do this. This would be too big of an opportunity to pass. And so that's how I ended up in Liverpool. And it was my first time to the UK ever. So you can imagine my shock when I heard the Liverpudlian accent.
She got in a cab with a Scouser driver, and
and I thought I didn't know English. I was like, what language is this? Suddenly started doubting myself.
It's a strong accent, isn't it?
Yes, very charming, but strong.
And for me, I always knew that I wanted to be a musician from a very young age, and the first band that I really fell in love with, and I'm still in love with, is the Beatles. So that goes back to the 60s again, and that kind of timeless songwriting. And so when I was about 11, my family took me on a pilgrimage to Liverpool to do all the Beatles sites. And one of the things they mentioned on the Magical Mystery Tour was, oh, this is the school that Paul McCartney started, LIPA. So I guess I had it in the back of my mind. And when I was graduating high school, I was looking for where to study music after that. And I knew pretty specifically that I wanted to study songwriting and modern music, and I didn't really want to go down the jazz route or the classical route. So that limited my options, and I applied to Berklee College of Music, which is a big jazz school, and I applied to LIPA, and I got into both, and I just felt like Liverpool was the right fit for me, and I guess I can't complain, because I met Orion, and here we are.
What do you guys think of Liverpool? Because I think it's really overlooked by people that live in London I live in the south of the UK, but I love Liverpool. It's one of my favourite places. I mean, it's got such a rich heritage in terms of its history and its music as well. How did you two find it?
I love Liverpool, and we still go back. We go when we record in a studio in Liverpool called The Cabin, which is owned by a dear friend of ours who's also a fellow LIPA graduate. And every time we go, the city gets cooler, honestly. Like every time we go, there's a new place to eat, a new hip coffee shop or whatever. The music scene has always been super rich, and it's great to be a music student there.
Yeah, I love Liverpool. It almost feels like going home again now. Mm-hmm. Whenever we go back, get off at the train at Lime Street Station, and it's like home away from home.
So once you guys left Liverpool, you found yourselves wanting to stay together, but you had some issues in terms of where you could actually live. Is that right? So you found yourselves on cruise ships for a couple of years.
Yeah.
That must have been tiring. Right. I've got friends that work on cruise ships, and it's a full-time 6 days a week thing, isn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely. We're glad we're not on them right now. But I'm also a UK citizen, so I was able to stay. But Orion,
I had a student visa.
Oh.
And for any person graduating from music, Bachelor of the Arts degree, it's kind of a big question mark of like, okay, how am I going to make money now from being and I think actually working on cruise ships is a really good kind of bridge between like finishing school and real life, because it's this in-between space where you're able to practice a lot because you're performing every single night for long hours, and you are in an environment of other creatives, because there's a whole entertainment department with dancers and actors, there's sound engineers, and there's other musicians, obviously. So it's quite a good community for that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think just the fact that you're performing every night, I think, is the main thing, really. Yeah. And we had to learn like 300 songs, just in order not to repeat ourselves within a week cruise. And so it's just really cool to be able to play for, hundreds of new people every week. You have a new audience. You get to start again and try it again and hone your craft as a performer. And
that was also a very important step for us personally in becoming O&O, because we weren't really a duo before we did that. And when we went on the cruise ships, people started reacting to our harmonies together and saying how much they love our voices together. And that's when it finally clicked that we said, maybe we should start writing for ourselves as a duo. And that's when O&O started forming.